what a time it was, the first quarter of the year 1970. It is impossible to recall it in tranquility. The memory of those turbulent days and nights, in those first 3 months of the opening year of a new decade. There's the air electric in an instant. And suddenly, one is reliving a moment in time. Feeling once again the throbbing in the temples, a quickening in the pulse, a fever in the blood. Sounds and images from the past rush into the mind. The blood-spotted tension, the fires in the night, the staccato of the armorite, the thunder of homemade bombs, the tear gas crawling down the streets and alleys, the flag carried with the red field up, the fists in the air, the triumph of tired but resolute feet, but most of all, the faces of an awakening nation. The dusty, sweaty, exultant faces of militant young men and women on the march, signing the vivid air with courage. It was a glorious time. A time of terror and wrath, but also a time of hope. The signs of change were on the horizon. A powerful storm was sweeping the land, a storm whose inexorable advance no earthly force could stop. And the name of the storm was history. The first quarter storm was no party. In the hearts of all who were an active part of it, that moment in time is now shrined as the first quarter storm of 1970.
As if on cue, the marchers began to sing the national anthem. Bayang magiliw, perlas ang silanganan. Their voices rose with the flames in the night. The buses and jeepneys did not know the lyrics of the song and continued to whiz by. The cops stood stock still, lips pressed close, a mask of indifference on their faces, like the sailors of myth who stopped their ears to the siren song. The anthem over, the marchers were silent a while, but soon broke into song again. Our Philcag lies over the ocean, our Philcag lies over the sea. A comely co-ed who wore glasses infiltrated the ranks of the law and started to distribute to bystanders and to police officers holding no sticks sheets of rough brown paper. It was tract number 21 of the Bertrand Russell Peace Foundation entitled A Message to the Filipino People. Nowhere, it began, is the mercenary character of the Philippine involvement in America's barbaric war in Vietnam more evident than in the recent suggestion to enact a law sanctioning the participation of Filipino combatants under the American flag. Bring back, the demonstrators sang. Bring back, oh bring back our Philcag to us.
Where the demonstration leaders stood, emblems of the enemy were prominently displayed. A cardboard coffin representing the death of democracy at the hands of the constabulary in the last elections. A cardboard crocodile painted green, symbolizing Congressmen greedy for allowances. A paper effigy of Ferdinand Marcos. When the president stepped out of Congress, the effigy was set on fire, and according to report, the coffin was pushed toward him. The crocodile hurled at him. From my position down on the street, I saw only the burning of the effigy, a singularly undramatic incident since it took the effigy so long to catch fire. I could not even see the president and could only deduce the fact of his coming out of Congress from the commotion at the doors. The sudden radiance created by dozens of flashbulbs bursting simultaneously and the rise in the streets of the cry. Marcus Puppet! Marcus Puppet! Marcus Puppet!
And then it was Friday, January 30. Again there were simultaneous demonstrations. To Congress went members of the KM, the SDK, the MPKP and other militant groups. The NUSP and the NSL marched on Malacanang. At about 3 in the afternoon, Hobson, Portia Ilagan of the NSL, and other student leaders went to Malacanang for a meeting with the president. Sometime past 5, the rally at Congress came to an end, and the demonstrators marched on to Malacanang, arriving there at about 6. What specific event precipitated the battle that spread out to other parts of the city and lasted till dawn the next day may never be known. The students who came from Congress claimed that, as they were approaching J.P. Laurel Street, they heard something that sounded like firecrackers going off. When they got to Malacanang, the crowd was getting to be unruly. It was growing dark, and the lamps on the Malacanang gates had not been turned on. There was a shout of, "Sindihan ang ilaw! Sindihan ang ilaw!" Malacanang obliged. The lights went on. And then, crash! A rock blasted out one of the lamps. One by one, the lights were put out by stones or sticks. A commotion was now going on at the Mendiola gate of the palace. A fire truck inside the palace grounds advanced and trained its hoses on the student rebels. The students retreated, and a brief period of lull followed. At about 7, a truck from the Manila Fire Department, responding to an alarm, came up from Santa Mesa, its sirens dead, and slowed down in front of St. Jude Church. The firemen probably intended to blast away at the students, but water must really be scarce. Nothing but an ineffectual sputtering spurt came out of their water cannon. The students charged. The truck backed off. But not fast enough. The firemen, who were not quick to flee, got beaten up. The rebels now had a captured fire truck at their disposal. They drove it toward the Mendiola gate and used it as a battering ram of sorts until the locks gave way, the chains broke, and the gate clanked open. Into the breach surged the more daring demonstrators. They had apparently come prepared for the assault. They lobbed Molotovs and pillboxes into the palace grounds. The flames spread down the road when the Molotovs crashed to the ground. The nails and broken pieces of glass scattered when the pillboxes exploded. Once inside the gate, the rebels stoned the buildings and set fire to the truck and to a government car that happened to be parked nearby. Before they could wreak more havoc, however, the Presidential Guard Battalion came out in force. They fired into the air, and when the Rebs held their ground, fired tear gas bombs at them. The Rebs retreated. The few who were slow on their feet, or were blinded by the tear gas, got caught on the palace grounds, and were beaten up with rifle butts and billy clubs and good old-fashioned fists and feet.
All I could see were the silhouettes of 4 figures. One a crumpled heap in the bushes at the foot of the scraggly tree. 3 huge ones standing over him like witches around a cauldron. The witches carried sticks, and the sticks were in perpetual motion. I could hear the sound of the sticks crashing through leaves and twigs, landing on human flesh. The dull whacking sounds were unmistakable, and once or twice another sound intervened. The sound of a stick on kneecap or skull. Wag po! Wag po! the whimper and the cries from the ground. Hindi po ako lalaban! Suko na po ako! Tama na po! Masakit po! Hindi po ako lalaban! And above him, barks, grunts, growls. Sige, mag-demonstration kayo bukas. Tayo! Tayo! Hindi pala lalaban ha. Mag-demonstration kayo bukas. Tignan ko. I stood there, paralyzed by a mess of emotions. Rage, outrage, frustration, fear, and hate. And through my mind went murderous thoughts. Temples throbbing, hands shaking. I turned away from the scene, went around the shanty, walked towards the TV lights. At my back, the thrashing had stopped, but the moans continued. Aarte-arte pa ito! Growled the guy with the truncheon. Tayo, sabi! And he swung at the young man's legs with his truncheon. The young man stayed on his back, writhing. The plainclothesman backed away from the fallen form. Then, and only then, did the TV lights focus on the victim. A reporter with a notebook knelt on the ground and asked, "Anong pangalan mo, boy?" The boy blurted out a name that sounded like Augusto Quezon. With Frankie, I walked back to Dakota to look for Augusto Quezon. He was no longer on the sidewalk. A bystander said a white car had passed by and taken him in. We walked down Heran to go to the PGH. Augusto Quezon was no longer in the emergency ward, but his name was listed down on the doctor's sheet. The entry after his name read, "Mauled by truncheon." Augusto Quezon was lucky that night. Enrique Santabrigida Jr. of Lyceum was mauled by truncheon too. And did not survive. Now days are dragon-ridden. The nightmare rides upon sleep. A drunken soldiery can leave the mother, murdered at her door, to crawl in her own blood and go scot-free. The night can sweat like terror.
The Plaza Miranda crowd parodied the Marcos Pledge. It was at the same time an angry cry from the depths. I mourn the fake freedom that I possess. The freedom lent me by Uncle Sam is a fishbone in my throat, a web over my mind, a muzzle on my mouth, chains around my feet and arms. I grieve over the heritage which should have been pure wealth, born of the sweat and blood of my ancestors, but which was befouled by dirty feudal hands and raped by a rapacious colonial master, gold made brass by foreign powers. I am tearfully proud of the flag, which is the symbol of the true freedom still to come. It rouses the tiniest fiber of my native dignity to struggle for national democracy and true freedom. I believe that every right I long for carries with it duties I must meet, that every hope I hold dear is commingled with tasks I must fulfill, so that this nation may stand with pride and dignity on a fountain of true freedom, justice, brotherhood, and progress, so that my class may be fully sovereign on this land, united, embracing a life devoid of discontent. I pledge in memory of the heroes who gave up their lives in 1896 to continue the revolution that they left unfinished. Guided by the national democratic aspirations of the people, I shall win back the freedom snatched from me by American imperialism, mercilessly smash all feudal forts, and never stop until I have brought down all imperialist fortresses. My very own blood I will shed. Life itself I will give away. From Days of Disquiet, Nights of Rage, by Jose Lacaba.
Himig ng bayan ko ngayon'y di masaya. Tinig ng bayan ko'y hiyaw ng dusa. Di ba panahon ng pagdi